there, the sound is stored in different
Will we
files.
be able to see the finished documentation prior to going to print?
Yes,
Sure.
we'll show you everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is recording now. So everything that we say now will be recorded. And,
Okay.
All right. So I guess today is June 18th of 2012, and we're talking to Mavis and Tom McCallum. I guess to start off, I guess Mavis, could you just tell me about how you came to Thurston Woods?
We came to Thurston Woods in 1972, living next door to this home, 5718. And
The two together?
yes, we were
Okay.
married. Tom and I have been married be 44 years come November of this year, 2012. So we were married 4 years, and we lived in 2 different apartments. So we decided we would go look for a home, and instead of continuing to look at apartments, because apartments had dogs and had people who weren't taking care of their dogs, and then wasn't taking care of what we felt as landlords. So what better way to have a better quality of life was to, move into the area. At the time, Tom was working for the post office and going to school full-time at UWM. So he knew there were several postal clerks that walked the area here, serviced the area. So they told Tom about this really unique area. Talk with Tom and shared that we were looking for homes. So we had to, of course, live in the city of Milwaukee because Tom worked for MPS, and I had to live in Milwaukee County because I worked for Milwaukee County. So we set off and started looking for a home, and one of the homes that we looked, we found this area, Thurston Wood. It was so beautiful. The trees was stately trees and well-kept neighborhood. So we said, oh, wow, this would be really nice. And we looked on 34th Street because 34th didn't have a sidewalk, so that was even less quieter, than on 35th. So we said, well, okay, let's look on 34th. So we looked at 56 and 5700 block on 34th for quite some time out during the summer of 72, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we couldn't really find anything. So finally one Sunday, we looked in the paper, and the house at 5718, the Cape Cod land and stone, attracted us to the area. We came by, and it was just really a gorgeous looking home from the outside. And we said, oh, this is really neat. And Tom said, oh, no, we don't need to be living in this area. Living in this house because it's going to be too small, because we're looking at homes in Sherman Park area and even some Wauwatosa homes, because he said, well, if I don't work for MPS, then after I finish undergrad school, we can live in Wauwatosa. So anyway, he said, it's a waste of time looking at this house. I said, but it's so cute and so quaint, so we're looking for, 2 to 3 bedrooms. So sure enough, we walked in, and it was just a gorgeous home, natural wood. It had land and stone fireplace. It had arches and had built-in china cabinets. And we just knew the upstairs was not going to be finished because so many of the homes that we saw just had 1 or 2 bedrooms on the first floor. Then it had a full course attic, but no bedrooms upstairs or bath. So we just said, oh, well, this house isn't finished. So we went up there, so that's what attracted us, was the home. And it met all our needs because it was a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, a living room, dining room, natural wood fireplace, leaded glass French doors, hardwood floors, and large-sized bedrooms. And we looked at, we always wanted to do a basement, the European look, like a pub. So we saw the potential of the pub, for the basement downstairs, the lower level. So we moved into the house on December the 1st of 1972, 73. And ever since we stayed there until 1999. And one of the reasons why we liked this area was only because of the Thurston Wood, home at 5718, the land and stone, and the qualityness of the home. It also gave us the opportunity to show our family and friends that you can live in a quality home in the city of Milwaukee instead of going to the suburbs. And it also, we had a lot of friends, and I grew up in Milwaukee, so we had a lot of people in various suburbs, Wauwatosa, Brookfield, and Whitefish Bay, and Bayside over the years, and Brown Deer. And as an Afro-American person, you were always followed when you went into those areas. And we had professional young nieces and nephews, and productive nieces and nephews, and we felt they wouldn't have to be subjected to, being stopped every time. Even some of our friends who lived in the suburbs, until the police understood who they were and knew where they lived, they would get stopped numerous times. So we had our own little suburb, Thurston Woods, and we weren't, harassed. I'm not saying necessarily harassed, but stopped. So a lot of times young people, do get stopped, coming back and forth and coming in at different times. And we were always a family of 9, so we always had a lot of gatherings, either at my house, my sister's house, or my brother's home. And it was just a good feeling that they could come and go, because we had other relatives that lived in the suburbs as well. So it never fails. Anytime we had an event, somebody was stopped. In Glendale, Brown Deer, River Hills, somebody was stopped. So this way, if they weren't stopped, we felt good about that. Also, it was trees. I loved the trees and the forest look. And then we learned more about the area, that you had to leave so many trees that was in the area, and before you built the home in here, you had to leave so many trees. So we liked the wooded area. And it was a quality of life environment. It was close. We go to St. Mark's on 16th and Atkinson, so it wasn't far to travel to work. It wasn't far to travel to shopping centers at Bayshore. Had company come from out of town, out of the country, so they could always have free access to the expressways, 43 and 94. We can always tell them just get off on Silver Spring, and they always were able to get to our home without any difficulties. So that was good too, when we had company coming from in and out. And also it was good for, looking at the schools in the area. If we did have a family, we were married 10 years before we had our only child, which is Garrett, Garret. And we were looking at, if we did have children, what environment would we want to place them in, a school environment. So there was a Lutheran school, Christ Memorial. Then also there was St. Albert's. Catholic school, and then was MPS Carlton,
Right.
on Silver Spring.
Mm-hmm.
So we had quite a few options, and we really wanted them to be part of the community schools instead of being bussed out at an early age, because he could be at home. We could walk to school, walk home. He could meet the same kids after school was over with. We wouldn't have to travel to the suburbs or travel to other areas, so he could play with friends. He would have his neighborhood friends to play with. We didn't know it was going to be he or she, and if it was going to be a she, it would have been Chelsea. So anyway, whoever this child was going to be, girl or boy, or both, we just looked at those future plans, and we just looked at everything as far as church, the environment, the area, and we looked at the history, the rich history of the area, and we were really impressed. At that time, the mayor of Milwaukee lived in the home.
Maya. Yeah.
So that was real impressive, and it was impressive that this was like the North Shore area that had a lot of different old craftsmen, like the Wagners and the Lane brothers. Matter of fact, the Lanes built this home. And it was the, who else was it? The Clinkers. We brought that first home. Our first home was by the Clinkers. They had built the home, and then right after they moved, we were the second owners of the home. And then it was the Kettles, Katel. They lived in their home the whole time, and then when they sold their home, the Globies lived in the home. That's Goebbels. Gobeli, Scott and Jane. So they're the second family in the house. And then the Corbins, and I have got Kathy Corbin. So it was a lot of people who were been in the homes for a long period of time. So we knew that with the quality of homes, it was going to attract quality people once when they sold it. And we've been very blessed and fortunate to know that it was good people that moved in, to the home. So it wasn't too transient. In recent years, it has become transient. So that's why we basically moved into the area. It gave us the life of the suburban. It gave us a little bit more eerie feeling and not the stuffiness of the suburban, but we still maintained the beautiful home, the landscaping, in each one of the homes in the area here as if it was Sherwood and Whitefish Bay. And a lot of people, when they came to our home, it was like, is this Milwaukee still? And they didn't realize this was Milwaukee, because Milwaukee has some really unique little pockets of beautiful homes, throughout the city. And so many people who service the community and give care to the community have to live in the city. So that's what attracted us to Thurston Woods. What about you, Tom?
You covered it quite thorough. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a former neighbor, Mr. Eugene Wagner, who resided at the second house from the corner in the east side. Eugene Wagner, he built his home, and additionally he was an artist, and he would take branches from the trees around here and carve one, and I wish we had that one.
It's downstairs.
He did wonderful carvings of faces, and he was on various channels, Channel 612, etc. So he was well known in the city as an artist. He was an excellent artist, and I always enjoyed interacting with him. He would stand out in his yard with his hand behind him looking up at the trees. Yeah, beautiful trees. And we had a good time together. And he was a wonderful person to know, as my wife alluded to. We had wonderful neighbors. And of course, it was always a plus to have Mayor Meyer, because we had excellent security in the area. Police cars patrolling so you could walk any time of the evening, no problem. We had street cleaning, the alley as well as the street, and at least twice a week. And as my wife said, it was utopia. Still a nice area, but we experienced the ultimate, being early settlers, if you will, in this area. So it's basically the only thing I would like to add to what she said. Unless there's a question you would have.
So look, I guess, could you just speak more to the change that you've noticed over time in the neighborhood?
The change has been less homeowners and more renters. And that's been, not that renters do not take the same pride in their home, but it's they do not feel part of the home that they live in. So it's not the care. They do not care about keeping up the property. The landlords move to other areas and they do not care. The businesses are not really conscientious as far as their signs, their logos, and all it is, and its quality, to give more care and class to the neighborhood. There's been more crime with drugs, and like on Titonia and Silver Spring and Floors. So been some crime, a change in crime, and our safety and security at times have been, violated. And that's one of the things that, as a homeowner and as far as being safe, we don't find that, but we have had a beautiful organization, the Block Club, and they have really worked with it. Dana Reinhardt and Gil Flowers have been the block captain. Prior to them being the block captain, I was part of the community that really reported situations, to the police before they even started with the Block Watch years ago. So with that, we have our concerns. We guide and direct and educate our neighbors as far as what to do, as far as maintain quality. And if you see anything going on unusual in the neighborhood, is to call the police. Don't act up on your own. We have seen where parents are not as involved as they used to be. You know, it used to be more family-oriented type activities, and parents supervise their children. That still exists, but of course, you know, you're always like in the old days, and we know that the old days is not always. We miss the fact that some of the young people could go to the stores and not have to be supervised with their parents. And Silver Spring has changed tremendously. And, you know, you really wouldn't want to send your younger, you know, child up to the store up there. And that's why with communities and neighborhoods, I think children should be able to play freely and have good spirits about playing outside and being able to go to the stores and go to the playground without a lot of fear of encountering gunshots or drugs.
So what do you think could be done to change the situation?
I think community awareness, you know, continue to work hard. We have to I'm retired, Tom's retired. So we have to become more active, even more so than what we are. You are your neighborhood. You know, if you live in a neighborhood, you're part of the neighborhood. And if we don't invest and do things in the neighborhood, how do we expect for the city or anyone else to come in and have interaction to give it back the quality that we have? So it's really up to us, the neighbors, you know, to be concerned, to go to door, to say, okay, garbage and undesirable alleys attract undesirable people, run down homes, you know, attract people. I think that the city need to keep up with their code. You know, there are certain codes, you know, housing codes. I think the city need to keep that up. I was born and raised in Milwaukee, they never would have let these homes get like they are now. I'm 65 years old, and there's no way when we were growing up that the city of Milwaukee allowed people to have fence roofs and debris in their yards like they do today. So we have to constantly call the city hall. You have to stay on the phone for about 15-20 minutes now before we can get someone to answer the phone. We have had meetings with our county alderman, the city alderman, and he's been helpful, but you have to have that patience. So it's a job to keep up with your neighborhood. And sometimes people have 2 and 3 different jobs and they don't have that energy, you know, and time. So then we retired, and then we have retired to become block watchers, you know, as far as getting the quality that we need to go around from home to home. And there's people who are actually paid by the city of Milwaukee with our taxes, and they are the ones who's supposed to provide, you know, what we're doing. There's no way our alley shorelines and different parts of the alley should look like it is. That's the only part that we have this neighborhood that look like a suburban, but the suburbians keep up with their codes. And we have codes in Milwaukee. The city of Milwaukee need to keep up with the code as far as we reported to the neighborhood housing, and sometimes they do, but years ago, neighborhood housing would come around and people had that fear. If I call neighborhood housing, they say Mavis McCallum called you, or your neighbor here 5710. So a lot of times people don't want that because neighbors become very angry. If you're doing your job, you shouldn't have to make reference to who called. You should know that there's a house that needs to have new windows or new doors, or the grass need to be, you know, done, or debris need to be picked up. You shouldn't have to make reference to that.
One of the ongoing changes that we have made, and I'm sure you would have mentioned this, but you cover so much. We had a problem with the service station on the corner of 35th and Silver Spring. It was attracting a lot of negative things, robberies, etc. And the person that owned that service station wanted to keep it open 24 hours. So we talked to neighbors, and we went down to City Hall, my wife and I, who was the spokesperson, and convinced the committee not to renew his license or give him a 24-hour license because there was too much problems down there. And I had a diverse neighborhoods going down there collectively and explaining the situation, we were able to prevent that from happening. Now, prior to that service station, we had a person who resided 2 blocks down, and it was one of those little quiet filling stations, we called it then, and he closed at an early, reasonable hour, and then he sold it to another guy who was also, although he didn't reside in the neighborhood, he did an excellent job servicing cars and whatnot. But then when he sold it, then that's when we had the other persons come in here. So that's the constant concern that we have to watch that, and Mavis monitor that quite closely, and she's called the queen of the neighborhood.
Or back in the old days, it was the mayor of the neighborhood, the assistant mayor of the neighborhood.
But this is the queen of the neighborhood now.
And what's interesting also, not only the titles, is that down through the years, we go back 15, 20 years, that we have gone down before the licensing committee with the city, and just, complained about even the traffic. It's heavy
Good
traffic,
point.
the
Yeah.
speeding. And we have complained about the trucking. It used to be no trucking. And then they had trucking coming, and a lot of trucks start coming in this neighborhood. These homes and the streets were not built for heavy-duty trucks. So I had to go before the board with that. Even when they were talking about cutting down trees, and that was about 20-some years ago, 25, I was involved with letting them know that we could not, cut down. The rule of thumb, if you're gonna cut down trees, you need to replace it. That's part of history.
Could you talk more about that and who else was involved?
At that time, it was Louis and June Baum, Baum. It was also, who was the people who lived, Louis and June Baum, who was the other neighbors? Who was Lynette Bracy, she's deceased, but was Lynette Bracy.
Oh, yeah.
Bracy. Who else was it? Reverend Reynolds, he
Yeah.
lives right on the corner there. Reverend Reynolds, he was involved. And Carol and Earl Haywood, they were involved.
And everybody, and why were you? So, why were you advocating for the trees?
We're advocating because that's one of the areas, the reason why we chose to live in this area, because it was called Thurston Woods, because it was beautiful trees. And we wanted to make sure that we maintained that, as far as even with cable coming in. Cable was coming in, telephone company was coming in, more and more sophisticated technology. They just want to come in and just chop down, all the trees just for their convenience. And we were totally opposed to, to that. And we just felt that was the reason why we moved here, because of the beautiful trees and because of the Thurston Woods, and that's part of the history, is the trees.
Yes, a unique area. Yeah.
So this home here that we live in, if you notice, quite a few of the home trees are close to the home, but they meticulously built these homes so the existing trees could maintain. So people were conscious of nature. And even with the gardening, there was a lot of times with landscaping, we had old flowers, the silver dollar pieces, and all different old flowers, that was back when it was the wooded area. People would come in, just do landscaping, not knowing that they had beautiful flowers, like these ferns. These aren't ferns that you got from the greenhouse. These are original ferns in this area that was from the wooded area. So we were trying to, encourage, and the hospice as well, we were trying to, let people know that this is history. These flowers and plants were history.
Yeah, we had a huge tree on the north side next to the front window in the living room that you could actually open the window and you couldn't extend your arms fully because it was that close. And we really didn't want to have that one cut down, but after a certain amount of time we had to, because of the danger of the tree damaging our home or perhaps the next one.
But the most important thing was that the loan, we were not going to be able to get our loan if we didn't cut those 2 trees down, because they felt it was too close to the house.
That's true.
That was pending on us cutting down the
Right,
trees to
that's
get our
true.
loan.
Yeah.
You know, because they were looking at the damage it could do. Of course, I cried.
I wasn't going to mention that.
So it's pretty clear that you guys love your neighborhood, and I think it shows in your home.
Mhm.
And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the investment that you've put in your home. The, not only just the upkeep, but also the changes that you've made.
Mostly the change has been cosmetic changes. And because we live in the city, because of the assessment and the taxes, we have to be aware that we aren't going, if we were to sell our home, we would not get the money that we would want to, that we would in a subdivision. So we always had quality eye and quality knowledge. And that has taken us really far. And it's been just basically cosmetic as far as painting, doing window assessments. We have maintained just about all the flooring in there. It's hardwood floors. The linoleum in the kitchen has been maintained. So what we have done was had that stripped, and then we just keep it to a high buff. And the carpet was here, the hardwood floors was here. The lower level, we basically did cosmetic, just to make that look good, and the way that we painted it, and accessorize it with furniture. You think we would have paid a whole lot of money down here, but we didn't. It was just what was, existing. It was already ready for you to just come in and just do cosmetic work. So that's basically all that we, did was the cosmetic. Because the home itself spoke for itself when we, moved in here. So it was just changing the period of time. Like the theater draperies that was all the way across. We changed that, we changed the real heavy duty blinds that was, there because it was the old blinds. I think we only get those set of blinds now just in Garrett's room.
Yeah.
They were really the best blinds, heavy wood, but then after a period of time they rotted. So the outside of the house, of course, we painted, but then we did it detail painting, and that was a tremendous change because the whole time that we were here next door, the house was never detail painting. So we just kind of more or less enhanced the beauty that was there already, with the home. So we haven't torn down any walls, did any major things like that. The outside we did, as far as putting a fence around just here recently for privacy because times have changed, neighborhood has changed. So we put a privacy fence around. We did the concrete back here, and that was about the patio. So that's the most major things that we have done, and enhanced it with flowers. So if you have something and it's kept up all the time, you really don't have to come in and do major things. Like even the walk-in closet was so unique. That was a nursery. Then after it was a nursery, then it was office for the Lanes. So after they came in, we decided that we wanted it to be a walk-in closet. So it was not where we had to go to closet stores or anybody come in. We just went to the hardware store and recreated the room with just hardware. So a lot of people would have been trying to knock out the wall, bring in another closet. We used the existing room and just enhanced what we had. So when you have that creativeness, going, which we're blessed to be quite creative, we have saved ourselves much money, as far as having creative minds and being able to, expedite things that we really wanted to have. So, even with the Lanes, it was like, wow, whoever thought we'd make a walk-in closet like this, and it's a nice walk-in closet. And all we did was the pre-existing cabinets, we still use that, the pre-existing inner closet, we use that. But then the outer part that was really the nursery and the former office, we just got hardware and just put rods up and then just made it into like it was, professionally done, So we improvise with what's actually here in the home.
one of the unique rooms in your house that I'm thinking about is the kitchen in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you could just talk about that room, its importance to you, and kind of its origins and development.
Which one, the kitchen?
In the basement, yeah.
The basement is quite interesting, because we're very collected, and we collect everything. So that's a reflection of what we have collected. Pieces of furniture that we have collected.
Yeah.
We have one piece that's over 100 years old. It's an old Brunswick phonograph, and it's a floor model, the big floor model. And we have the records that's over 100 years old, and we got that from a neighbor up in Fox Lake, from a slave. She was a slave. She lived to 111, 12 years old. So one of our friends was the executive of the estate. So we ended up with that, down here, and I inherited that. Then we ended up needing some flooring. My nephew worked for Wisconsin Kitchen Mart. He put in the flooring. The arch that was the keyhole arch, we kind of kept part of the keyhole arch, and we put columns, up to enlarge the room, so it could be more of a conversation piece. We collected different furniture and had a great friend who was a upholsterer, so she upholstered a lot of it. That becomes our party room, our family room. It becomes the sports room for our son. I have fundraisers. I'm board president of New Concept Self-Development Agency that's been in existence since 1975. So I have different fundraisers, here at the home. So that serves as the multi-purpose room as far as parties. We have good parties, dinners down there, Christmas parties. So that again is like furniture that we had throughout the house. We took it down there and enhanced it, different wall accessories, and Tom's painting. Tom, before return as principal in the Menominee Falls School District, he was an artist. And still is an artist. So with that, he ended up, a lot of his artwork was there. And we have had his artwork for quite some time, so, to give update, that was a great place to bring a lot of his art, because we had that art for 20-some years, and then to kind of give a new look, in other parts of the house, we used that room.
And the kitchen downstairs?
Oh, the kitchen is great. The kitchen I love because it has the cabinets, which was originally the built-in cabinets, and it goes all the way across the wall. And it has like 4 shelves, and then plus it has top shelves. When we first came over and looked at it, I said, oh man, I can really, do good down here, because it has all the space I can, because when people come, they say, are you a caterer? Do you cater? And I said, no, I just like to entertain. And instead of having all your stuff you got to always dig for, you just go down there and just visually look and pick your stuff up. It's like, hey, this is cool, and we do all my bulk kitchen cooking down there, And one time I used to can a lot. My sisters and I did a lot of canning. So by being downstairs, and it's cooler, and the steam and all, it was a great place to can. We canned here, and then we canned next door. So that was like all the summer project, canning. We would get together and can string beans and corn and all sorts of vegetables and jams and pickles and stuff. So that was a gathering place for us downstairs as well.
So when you moved in, you intended to build a kitchen down there, or did
The
that
kitchen-
kind of...
The kitchen was existing. We did. The kitchen existed. It was not a kitchen. It was a room. And we just ended up putting our stove, because we had this home here already had a stove. So we loved this stove because it was a really unique design stove. So our stove that we had from the other home, we put downstairs. And then plus it already had a freezer, so the Lanes, kept their freezer downstairs. And by him being a woodworker There's a lot of work that he did as a carpenter, that he had the bench down there, the whole bench area where the clothes chute is and where the counter space is. That was his workbench, on top and at the bottom. So I improvised and made that like my counter, for cooking. And down below, instead of the tools, we did all the pots and pans. So like leftover cabinet work that we had throughout the house, I put that there, like the old piece of, the old cabinet that maintains the surplus liquor. I put that down. An old cabinet we had from past family members, the cabinet. I put that down there so it wouldn't look like you're going into the basement with the pipes. So again, it was that creative mind that Tom and Mavis had as far as making it look like a kitchen. So people think we really, put a full-blown kitchen down there, but it was just a room that was really basically a room for a carpenter. And we used it for multi-purpose. That's our dining room. That table lets out into over 120 feet. Is one of those old Dunkelheim tables. And we can let it out. It has about 8 leaves, and we can just let that sucker out and fill it up with food. That's our table, a wonderful table for the holidays. We have food stretched all the way across. So that's how that came. And then what else was down there? The tables. We put the tables down there. The washing machine and dryer. Yeah. What else we have done in that kitchen?
That's quite enough there.
And it's a great storage. It's a great storage because it's a surplus pantry. It holds all the times golf stuff. It holds all my other stuff that I need to entertain the hostess that I am. I need all these little fine things like candles and
some of my art supplies,
chafing dishes, and his art supplies. So it's a multi-purpose room. It's a cool room. And then plus, I'm not one to really like a lot of people in the kitchen when I'm cooking. We would never be able to have an open concept home. Because I don't like people all in the way when I'm cooking. So by being a large area down there, they're away from where I'm cooking. And that's what I like about this area, this kitchen upstairs, our everyday kitchen, is because I put people in the nook area. And it's not in my immediate cooking area. I don't like people all around the counters. Now, when they come, they'll try and congregate around the island. And I have to kind of, get back, go over there and sit over here. Or they can sit here in the kitchen. But I would never be able to be one for open concept kitchen. Never. Or even an open concept home. And that's one of the things that we loved about the house, because all the rooms have its own, what would you call it? Character. Like here's the dining room. Here's the living room.
I love the family room, as I call it, because it enabled me to take my buddies down there to watch Tiger Woods golf, basketball, and we could isolate ourselves from the ladies in their conversation, because we mix well, but at times you want to be away from that. And then if there's a lot of kids too, you can isolate yourself from the kids, and there's still ample room for everyone to scurry about and do whatever. And I like that feeling that I have the space, the comfort zone, so that there's not too many people.
That's the lower level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when it's just small and intimate
that's
for
the den.
son,
I call
that's
that the
den. The one with the parquet and the built-in lighting, recessed lighting. He likes that.
Yeah, that's my castle, miniature castle.
Mm-hmm.
That's the king's room.
Where do you make your art?
All over. I might start in the kitchen. I might go down to the lower level. I might even sit at my desk upstairs, because it's basically just sewing. Opposed to painting, of course, that would be difficult because of the smell of the mineral spirits or the turpentine and the mess. But so I could sit here and sew my face and whatnot. And I love the flexibility of what I'm currently doing as an artist, and it doesn't require much space, and that's a big plus for me.
I noticed some of it is ceramic.
Yeah, ceramic.
Where do you get it fired?
I have a friend that fired the pieces for me, and prior to that, when I was still in education, I had the school, to do that.
Does your friend live in Thurston Woods too?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
And I'm currently using more canvas in lieu of ceramic. I'm just experimenting with the possibility of doing that because I do not see any soft sculpture work that uses canvas. It's basically soft sculpture by itself, or it might be ceramics, etc. But canvas is really unique and different, and I think I'll be able to pull this off and really make a statement.
One of the things we talked about moving from the house next door to over here, it was more space. And we already owned the home next door, paid for the home next door. But it couldn't have been a better time in our life because Tom was returned, our son was graduating from high school and going to college. And it just gave us, with more space, it was just so great. You know, we thought for sure that was all the space that we needed next door. But this space gave your own privacy. You know, we have our own individual rooms that we can, go to and be. Like I said, I'm from a large family, so I have a lot of sisters and my brother. So they might come over. Tom might be in the den, want to watch TV. We just close off the doors. Open concept, you can't do that. So I can stay in the living room, dining room, or we be in the kitchen. I can just close the door off, and then they still have their total privacy. So that's what's so good about the rooms. It's a term that they use for the rooms, self-contained rooms. But I like older homes, not only because of the character, but the flexibility.
Could you talk more about the food that you like to cook? Like when you're in your kitchen downstairs doing all your large cooking, what kind of food do you cook?
All different types of ethnic food. My main support food cooker is my sister Mary Russell. Now Mary is a real serious cooker. She, is the food service. She cooks the food at our church, and all my sisters, Vanessa, Mary, and Dolores and Pearl, are all great cookers.
Yes.
But what we do downstairs, we'll cook ribs and barbecue and gumbo and fried fish, greens, all different greens and black-eyed peas and crowded peas. We do low country boil, we do crab boils outside. And then we do low country boil soups. That's a southern, soup that we do. The gumbo is every New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I cook a great big huge seafood gumbo and have all the shrimps and the crab and oysters and all that in it, and it's really great. And I do a lot of cooking, my baking. Now that's my bakery down there, because at Christmas time I can do anywhere from the minimum is 60 loaves to almost 140 loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Or more.
Just in 2 weeks? Or?
In a short period of time. And I'll do apple nut bread, zucchini bread, pumpkin bread, strawberry bread, pumpkin bread, banana bread. And then I do what I call Chinese fried walnuts. Fried the walnuts. I do oven baked glazed pecans, and sometimes people call them pearlings. I call it spiced pecans. I do my baking my cookies. I bake a whole bunch of cookies. I bake about 10 different types of cookies, and then it'll be like about 8 or 9 dozens of each one. So my husband and everybody think I'm crazy. Then I make candy. I do a lot of candy. I do a lot of chocolate candy. I do a lot of white candy. I do all sorts of candy. This house be candied up, cookied up, and I love it. But like I got stuff I have to go down there and bake now. So it's here, but my main thing starts like right at November. I start with them, and then I bake and all the breads and stuff, and it starts like in November. And then I do it during seasons too. Like zucchini is a certain time, so when it's prime time for zucchini, I go get all my zucchini at a low price and grate it, and then sometimes make it right away. If I don't make it, then I'll freeze them. Strawberries a certain part of time of the season, then I get the strawberries, and then the same way with what is that? The pumpkin. You know, in October, September, October, pumpkins. Then that's a good time to get, you know, your pumpkin instead of the pumpkin in the can. So everything is a different season still, you know, to take advantage of the vegetables during the season and, you know, to incorporate it into my baking. So yeah, I do all that. We do some serious cooking downstairs. I mean, whatever it is. We do a lot of German ethnic groups, Italian meals. German meals. Yeah, we do all sorts of different types of food.
So you can see we have quite a few guests throughout the year here.
So do you host every week?
Not every week. Sometimes you think I would.
It seems that way to me.
It seems like that at the time.
It's ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing. Once when I get settled down within a week or two, I'm definitely, you guys gonna, you know, I'm gonna call all of you back, and you'll get a chance to see Mavis cooking and taste it. Not see it, but taste it. So yeah, we'll have some good eating before the summer's over, before y'all start back to school or whatever. So we'll pick a good time, you know, to do, you know, so you can sample some good food. So we do outside cooking too. So that's why I said we have like an annual crab boil. And we, you know, boil great big huge pots of crab, and we do the Low Country boil, like that's what I was telling you with, that's a Alabama, you know, down south type of soup.
And the fish fry, Mary.
Oh, the outdoor fish fry we do. My sister Mary does the outdoor fish fry. Dolores, she's the cake baker. I'm not good at baking cakes. So Dolores does the cakes and the pies.
Right.
You know, she's real good with the cakes and the pies. And then my sister Vanessa and Pearl, they do whatever it is, the filling it, you know. Vanessa make the potato salad, but we have a whole bunch of food. I mean, we just, you know, cook. So that's really cool. And one thing about the downstairs you were talking about the downstairs is so neat, because once when we had these huge parties, the house is, you know, we can start at 4 o'clock and finish at 11 or 12 at night, or 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the whole house is clean upstairs. And then a lot of our friends and family help put up stuff downstairs. Then like if it's really getting late and I'm tired, we got the 2 great big huge wash tubs. And I put a little bleach in and put all the stuff in the wash tubs, and then I can get up. So one thing about it is I make sure that Tom and Garrett, when Garrett was growing up, they never had to get up in the next day in a house that was, you know, looked like a party. So Tom really couldn't complain about me having all these parties, because the next morning the kitchen would be clean and sterilized. All the bathrooms would be sterilized and clean. Like before I go to bed, I would have to wash down, bleach down all the bathrooms. All bathrooms in lower level, first floor, and all I do, take a sponge, put bleach in it and scrub it up real good. And change the rug. So the house would be clean and sanitized. The floor in the kitchen be wiped up. So I do that, you know, a lot of times it might be taken for granted, but I do that because that way, you know, there's a lot of women who have homes and men who have families that have homes. But a lot of times people don't have that affordability to entertain the way they would really want to, because one of the other spouse don't like people, the invasion, don't like people coming into the home. So what I try to do is make sure that once when everything's over with, we are still cleaning up and doing the next day. We can get up and just reminisce about and reflect on the great day the night before.
Why do you like to entertain, and where did you learn to entertain?
Well, we're from a family of 9, and my parents are originally from Arkansas. So, and Tom's family was from Mississippi. So my mother and father came up here in the late 20s into Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So when they came up, there were so many other Afro-American people coming to Milwaukee. So my mom used to entertain different people, introduce them to society, introduce them to different people in the community, help them out with jobs, locating jobs. And then a lot of times, a lot of the Afro-American people lived in rooming houses. So they all came together and helped everybody, relocate. So you maybe had people living with you, until they were able to find jobs and home for housing for their family. So it was always big time cooking. My father was a butcher for Plankerton Packing House. So he was from Arkansas, and he always, for poverty. So when he worked here in Milwaukee, one of the greatest gifts he thought he gave his family was meat, because that was such a rarity when he was growing up. So when he worked, he loved to just cook slabs and slabs of meat and all different types of food, and he was just so happy that he was, you had to get that, he was so happy that he didn't have to provide that, he could provide that for, the family. So that's where we ended up doing all this cooking, because we constantly cooked all the time. Like a lot of when we were going to school and college, all of us in college and school and church, all the kids, was attracted to our house because we did homemade ice cream. My parents did my mom did homemade ice cream. She did rolls, homemade bread and rolls and all. So people always wanted to gravitate to our home, the Burtses. So that's just been a way of life for us. And then Tom's mother, I met her. Then of course she was always a baker and a cooker too. So she loved to cook as well. So that was a real perfect match, because I like going over to her home to cook. And then there was two sisters.
I had two sisters and my parents. So I'm from a small family compared to Mavis' family. So it was somewhat of adjustment that I made as far as the amount of people in our home, etc., whatnot.
But the point I was saying, his mom also, that's what attracted me too, because she was a good cook, and she didn't mind sharing her, food. And even with our friends, even if he was from a small home, his mom had more of an open heart,
very much so,
than the sister and brothers. The mom loved us because she would love all our friends to come over.
Yeah.
We'd be out hanging out,
Yeah.
drinking. We go to mom's house and eat up and have us a wild time.
Yeah, she loved to cook and have people over to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have to take some time to adjust to having more people over?
Somewhat I did, because I socialize well, but I'm kind of a quiet, moody person. And there's time when I don't want a lot of people, but I make adjustment. Because as an administrator, of course, I had to deal with parents and teachers and community members, so it was no problem. It was adjustment from a small family to a large family, because that was my family.
So I told my family, I said, Tom sometimes like to be alone. And even like next door, we had individual comfort zone places for him to go. Then I just told him, don't be thinking that he's acting funny. I always told him, if you want to leave, go on. Nobody gonna really miss you. Because if there's so many different people.
That's for sure.
I said, go and do it. So it's like, nobody really, if you stay, it's because you choose to stay.
That is true. That is true.
My whole thing is go to bed. Nobody really know you gone,
It sounds like most of the events you host are for family, or do you invite neighbors as well? Or
Neighbors
people
as
from
well.
town?
I've been kind of, like I said, by me being a community person, I've had a lot of community. I work very hard in the community, and I have had a lot of community meetings here, and campaign parties here for different political people in city and state government. So I've hosted a lot of campaign events. Also, like I said, with New Concept Social Service Agency, being board president, with the times of life changing and the economy. For the longest, we were able to get grants and money from state and federal fund, and that's not too existing for organizations that's helping family and children in the community. So we always had this great Christmas party. So 4 years ago, I decided we have a real Christmas party, a Christmas party with a real meaning, and that was to be a fundraiser. So all the proceeds went to New Concept. So I would provide all the food and beverages, and then whatever we asked of our guests to make a donation that went directly to New Concept. So I do that. Matter of fact, we're getting ready to do another meeting with the community on 16th from North Avenue. There's an old natatorium that was there. Our friend is called Walnut Way. And our friend Sharon, she grew up in that area, and I did too as well. So our home is one of the plots that they're using as far as the urban garden. So it's the, I grew up there, and one of the plots is our family, urban, not our family urban garden, but they're using they took over the land that we used to own the house. And using that, so they want to do a $3 or $4 million new health facility called the Collins Way, right there on 16th and North Avenue. And so I'm gonna have the kickoff, planning committee here. So I share my home with the community. I'm not like the president and the governor. My home is the community home, but sometimes it gets to be like that. Sometimes it does get to be like the president and the governors. You share it with the community, and that's part of life. It's all gonna come back. I'm all about servicing, some other parents' children. I'm all about serving, giving quality care. But what I don't have, I want other people to have just as well as I do. I would love for everyone to have the same joy and happiness in life and the quality of life that I have. And whatever I can do to try and do that, that's what I do.
As a side note, could you tell us in a couple minutes or so what New Concepts does?
New Concept is a social service agency, and it started in 1975 by two Afro-American women, June Perry and Jerry McFadden. Within that period of time, they provided social service care. It would be mental health care. It would be anger management. It would be working with them in school programs, father resource programs. Children who parents incarcerated, they become mentors for that. They become mentors for young girls and boys who are, from families that's struggling. They try to bring back families and work with families so they can be able to provide productive young children into productive adults. And it's a social service agency that has been funded by United Way. And of course, United Way have had some struggles, trying to provide money to everyone else. And we also, we are struggling, because any standalone social service agency is struggling in the economy, with the economy. So a lot of your main organizations have merged. You have like St. Charles, you have St. Anne's, and a lot of them have merged, and Lat Lake. And so we are looking at merging because we want to continue to be that legacy, that we have always been with New Concept. So it's been a highly recognized social service agency. It was one of the most #1 model for years, and has provided millions of from 75 to now, been like over 1 million people we have serviced throughout the community. And we have had model programs, like the Father Resource Center was one of the first in the country, and the back to school program. So we have done an incredible job. And like I said, we're struggling now. Right now, one of the things I would like to do for the summer is have something in like a jazz set in the yard, and have like a fundraiser for that. And Christmas, the last 4 Christmas, I've had a fundraiser, like I said. I'm planning on having knee surgery in September. So with that being, I know I will not be up for no Christmas party in December. So I figure with the summer and the beautiful yard, we could have like a jazz concert in the yard. And see about different people that we know are jazz musicians, and you know, of course, have all the food and the booze and have a good time. And that would go to New Concept, of course. Mm.
Quick question: where do you go grocery shopping?
Well, go every place. I go up here to Jewel's, Syndic's, and we go to Pick and Save.
Sam's.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I go up here to Save on Food.
Save a lot.
Save a lot. Save a lot. Corner stores I'm not too fond because of the crime, you know, and the people that kind of hang out in that area. Mm-hmm.
And the lack of items.
And the expense, you know, it's too expensive. It's not like when we grew up, the corner stores had everything you wanted at a reasonable price, you know, so that's where we go, you know, shopping.
Do you know of anybody who does community gardening, or do you guys do that yourselves? We've noticed it, community gardens in Haven Woods. And
Will Allen have done a great job with community garden. And community garden, when we were growing up in the city of Milwaukee, that was a way of life.
Right.
Just about everybody, that isn't nothing new. It's just that people stopped being productive and got a little lazy. You know, when we were growing up on 6th Street, the Hellier Park area, and 17, the Walnut Way area, we had a garden. I mean, our family, my sisters had a garden, my brothers had a garden. Yeah. We had gardens, and we produced food. And like in the old days, if we had enough food and stuff, it was where Johnson Park is there in Fond du Lac. There used to be a farmer's market. We'd go sell our food there, you know. So what Walnut Way is doing and what Will Allen is doing is all great, but that's something that has, if you've been here in Milwaukee for years, that's something that people always did do. You know, and so we do not have a garden and never have had a garden because it's hard to grow vegetables in a shaded area. So, you know, it's just hard to even grow certain plants that I would love to have, you know, from the old days that we just can't grow because of the lack of sun. And that's like, now Kathy Corbin, next 2 doors over, she's an artist, and she, Corbin, she's a professor at UWM. Now she does some gardening, you know, but she's meticulously worked the land to see what is best, you know, out there, you know. She had talked about Kathy had talked about there's Thurston Woods School up north of here, and they have like a great big field. And Kathy said, you know, that would be a great project to have where the students could be out there, you know, with it, because it's a great big field. It used to be St. Albert's soccer field. Mm-hmm. So now MPS own it, and they really don't do anything there. The St. Albert's used to have their baseball team there and the soccer. Mm-hmm. And Kathy Corbin was saying that would be something really to work in the near future, you know, as far as, you know, having an urban garden up there, because it's all fenced in. It's just a prime space to be able to do that. And if we work with MPS, we should be able to do something productive up there as far as an urban garden. But go ahead.
Could you talk about maybe some of your favorite places in Thurston Woods, and maybe they're places of the past, like the filling station you mentioned, the filling station's past owners.
Yeah, Ross.
Places you like to
He was
go.
a nice guy.
Ross,
Ross, yeah.
we used to hang out there
Yeah.
a lot.
That was a place I would hang out somewhat, not just to service cars, but just to carry on conversation with really a pleasant guy, and we enjoyed each other's company quite a bit.
And that was down on Silver Spring?
Yeah, on the corner,
35th?
on the north side. Yeah.
Okay.
In all the years, Joe's Cafe.
Oh
They have
yeah,
home
Joe's.
cooking.
We
That's
should
great
go there
food.
sometime.
Have you ever
Yeah.
been there?
We tried to go, but it's
Two.
cash only, so we need to make sure to.
Oh, that's
pay
right,
for
it is
this.
cash.
And then plus it's always packed too, you know,
Yeah,
certain
but
times
boy,
they,
they
they
give
just
you a
open at
large
6
meal.
o'clock, close
Very
at 2.
Yeah,
So it's
Very
now all
reasonable.
day. But Joe's always been great.
yeah.
And Mama Mia's, that isn't in Thurston Woods, but it's right close. Mama Mia's Pizza, you know, we've gone there. It used to be the cozy spot right up here. Now it's changed. It used to be a really nice tavern over there on the corner of 35th and Silver Spring. So that was a neighborhood place.
Now it's Mike's place?
Right. I haven't even been in there. Only thing that I just told the owner, he needs to look at replacing his garbage can, not on 35th Street, move it around to the side. So we have, you know, also told him about people, got to find a place for people who are smokers, no lottery, you know, on that area. So he already kind of heard a little bit about us already. And our other place as far as eating and going, it used to be this place right up here. I forgot the name of it.
Where?
It's been that little bungalow, the house that was across from, oh wow. It was the house across from Golden Gate.
That was Ponderosa.
It was, and then there was another place right next to Ponderosa. We used to have a Ponderosa up there. So that was fun, you know, loved a Ponderosa. And that's one of the things that we kind of missed. It was like, you know, the Ponderosa, it was Joe's, the little bar there, and then there was another bar right on the corner. Now he's still, I think is still there, that owner, on 36, right on the corner of 36.
Is it the Silver Spring Tavern? Or?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was always a neighborhood, you know, place as well. So when our son was growing up, we went to the Havenwood a lot. You know, that was really, you know, fun place to go.
For picnics? Or?
And just to kind of hang out in nature. And then they played soccer over there on that field in Havenwood. So it was a soccer. So Havenwood, have you ever been over by Havenwood?
Not yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
get a chance to go to Havenwood, because there's a lot of history about the Havenwood area as well, as far as Thurston Wood is concerned. So that's what we did. But one of the things that, you know, I'm so glad that the two of you and the group of you are doing about Thurston. I think every community need to have history. And one of the things, I am a tour guide for Historic Milwaukee. So by me being one of the tour guides for Historic Milwaukee, there's so many areas that have, like Walker's Point, Brewers Hill. A lot of these places have really valuable, Bronzeville. They have a lot of history, you know, going on. That there's neighborhoods in Milwaukee that were very vibrant neighborhoods that have a lot of history. And we like that. We don't have that. And I want people to know, you know, I had a list of people here. I want the people to know that the Lanes lived in this area and who they were all about, because these were not little insignificant people. And they played an impact on our community. I want them to know that my nephew, Darrell Cunningham, lived in Thurston Woods. I want them to know that Dana Reinhardt, John Knox, Kathy Corbin, Jane and Scott. Jane and Scott Globally lived in it. The Klingers lived in our home. The mayor lived in our neighborhood, the Flowers, you know, and these are people making a huge contribution. Some are gone, the Wagners, Eugene Wagner. Some of them made a great contribution to the community, like Wagner's, right, Carolyn Earl Haywood, you know, she was an opera singer. And then also The Wagners, you know, and the Lanes, they did work at the City Hall and the State Capitol woodworking. And people need to know these are people from Milwaukee and from Thurstonwood area. You know, and the Wilsons across the street, that's one of the oldest barn houses. Cindy Wilson lives over there. And then Reverend Williams, you know, Reynolds, he's been really good with keeping all the people. He's a Methodist minister, but he has a kind aura about him as far as keeping people together. And then the Cindy Merriweather across the street, she is an educator. And June and
Louis.
Boom, they were always BAUM. Always was a great person in the neighborhood. Found out a lot of history. I went to Bible study, find out that one of the ladies in the Bible study, her parents built that home. So, like I said, it was not, these homes didn't have a whole lot of people. Like Jonah's still living in the house. She's just the second owner, the original owner, then it's been June. Then she lives in the house there. And it's just so great to just know that these people do a lot of things in the community. And even myself, you know, I've been with Historic Milwaukee for the last couple of years. I said, there's so much more that I need to find time about my neighborhood so I can share, you know, with my neighborhood. You know, we want to know who were these people. You know, when my son, we gone, and our son, you know, have children. I want his children to know that in this neighborhood, there were real productive, self-reliant, self-efficient people living in this area and very productive. We got a lot of professionals that live in this area, you know, a lot of educators. This is really a lot of educators, you know, people in education live in this area. And like I said, in the past, there was a lot of carpenters, and then there was a lot of wood company furniture, like the Cato Wood, Katel furniture stores. And like I said, the Wagners, and even the Klingers. The Klingers had a furniture store, you know, and so these were high rollers up around here, you know, at one period of time in these homes. And we want to get it back to, we might not have all the high rollers. Everyone is a high roller, you know, if they put their mind to it. You know, you don't make a person less of a person than what they are. We just enhance them and bring out the quality. So if we could do that, like a lot of times when we have our meetings, let's invite the renters. Let them buy into it. When we grew up on 6th Street, you know, the Brownsville area, we thought we owned our home. When we were, until my parents said we're going to move, and why we moving? Because we don't buy a house. I mean, we put a garden in the house, we painted the house, we did all this stuff as if it was our home. My dad added a porch, a wraparound porch and everything, and it was not our home. Like even our renters over here, you know, before we had renters, you know, just renters. Whatever we had to do. Now we got a renter out here, brought a new fountain. He's putting, you know, adding flowers. It was already landscaped by me and Tom, but then he's adding little flowers and giving color over there. He came up the other day, he said, well, I got an American flag. How I go about getting a Thurstonwood, you know, flag? And then I was in the garage, and I thought about it. I said, now, should I impose on him, although it's our home, should I put the Thurstonwood? But it was just good to know that he wanted to be part of the neighborhood, and he's a renter. And that's that concept that people should have. You know, he put out lights, nighttime solar lights. It's just simply beautiful. Joe and Sue, you know, Debbie. And they have put out just great lights, you know, all around, and have really, you know, put mulch all around. And that's the first since we've been over here in 1999 that anyone have done anything. We'll have 2 renters. And since 99, and he's the first, and they just moved in this past December. And he's the first they are the first to take pride in being part of living over there. You know, that's a great feeling. And Plus, like we have received the Mayor's Landscaping Award 3 times, Tom and I have, for this house. So for the first time when you start, getting this landscaping award, it's like, oh wow, sky's the limit. You get crazy the next year, you get real stupid the next year. So, but one of the things, the end results, it encouraged other people, like even with this house, wonderful people, but never really had a hoot about, keeping up their property next door. But they kind of did a lot, little things there. They felt that they still substandard. And I said, no, you have to understand, there's more to than just keeping up your lot. When you have people over there drinking and partying and having a lot of traffic in and out, that's one of the best gifts as a neighbor you can have as well. I don't have to have the aesthetic look. I just want peace and quiet. Then when I come in this yard, you can have people hanging all off the porch, music loud, which they don't do. Like the young lady across the street, she, Cindy, she's young and single. She was like, oh, well, I got to do a little work to my yard. So when you have a good environment, it becomes contagious. Other people want to, do. So, you live by example.
I think that's a good note to end the interview on.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask one more question. At a larger scale, how do you feel about Milwaukee in general? And you both, did you grow up here as well?
Yeah. I attended elementary school, high school, college. Yeah.
So,
I love Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee. I love the geographical setting where it is on Lake Michigan. I love the festivalness of it. I like that it doesn't seem like it's safe, but it's relatively safe environment, clean. You go to a lot of different other cities, it's far less cleaner than Milwaukee. We can complain about what the city isn't doing, but our city is clean. I like how they are aggressive as far as keeping the snow plowed. We're very fortunate and blessed because we can live in other cities and it takes days and weeks. You can almost be housebound because of the substandard snow plowing. There's a lot of history, rich history in Milwaukee. I learned so much about being a tour guide with Historic Milwaukee that Milwaukee was one of the leading, cities here in the country and in the world for grain and steel, which I was not aware of, so it has a lot of rich history. It has a lot of ethnic history. So it has beautiful parks. The parks have gone down because of the economy. I think it's coming back a little bit, so we always been park people. Our family always went to the park. We always went to the zoo. We always really took advantage of the zoo and the parking. The education was good, and I think education as much as what the parents put back in. Tom is the educator. Sometimes you have to be out there advocating for your children and better education. Sometimes when you aren't monitoring, the education component, people do what they want to as far as providing education. So I like the culture part. It has a lot of class to it. It has a lot of culture. They have a lot of theaters, a lot of plays, and I love going to plays and concerts, and I love that. I used to play the violin and all, so I like all that. So Tom.
That's a big plus, and I agree with everything you said. I especially enjoy living close to Lake Michigan. That's a big plus. The parks, I'm a golfer. I enjoy going to the golf courses, and they're in very good shape, and prices are reasonable. And the site is nice. I'm not pleased with the education in MPS because I don't like the fight of our kids where they're going, and I would like to see that turn around, but there's a lot of factors, and that would be too time consuming to go into them, but just to try to minimize the negativity there. More parental involvement, more community involvement, more involvement by the political leaders instead of talking, doing things about it to change this, because of where it's going now. I hear a lot of talk, but I don't see the action, and consequently the kids are the ones that are suffering. And it really, it's disheartening to see kids out of school on the streets instead of in school, because we know that the chance of success is minimum because they do not have an education. So it's vital that we get those kids in school, and we need to start to look at avenues to do that. It's possible, but it takes a lot of work, and I don't see that work really happening fast enough. And as I said, that's parents, community, etc. But we need stronger leaders that are physically, mentally, spiritually connected with these kids to do something about it and not allow this to continue, because it's not a good situation. Now, as far as living here, I enjoy it, but that's one of the things, being a former educator and a parent, that really still disturbs me.
And that's been your feeling throughout, or is that kind of a recent turn you've seen?
That's been for numerous years. I haven't had an opportunity to be employed by MPS for 18 years, and then 9 years in Menominee Falls. I could see a vast difference in education. Of course, I'm talking about a small system versus a large one, but I see a school board that work together to make changes. I see more involvement by parents and leaders, and that's how these kids get the benefits. They can of course do it by themselves, but that takes a child that's really dedicated, that wants to learn, and thank God we have those kids doing this, and they're making it despite the negativity that they're confronted with every day. But that's one of the things that I really have a concern about in Milwaukee. Okay, and I know that's all over, but that's still one of my sore spots.
Yeah, my mom's a teacher, and she's been a teacher for 35 years,
Mhm.
and she's actually an art teacher.
Okay.
And in the last 10 years, Indiana has cut a lot of its funding, especially for the art classes.
Yeah. Oh, art and music is first to go.
Yeah.
Well, something that's creative to stimulate the mind.
Right.
And gym, so you need those, that stimulates the mind.
Well, it's the leaders,
Mhm.
they figure it's not that important.
Yeah.
And it is.
And we don't need to record anymore.
don't?
But I
Okay.
wanted to ask you if we could contact some of the people you mentioned. You mentioned Cindy Merriweather.